From the Palmetto State Armory Studios, this is
WRWN,
Port Royal,
Hilton Head,
Savannah.
Good afternoon, golf fans. This is Tom Kinder speaking to you from the crow's nest of the South Carolina Yacht Club, along with my very able wingman, the sweet swinger from Furman, Daniel Cort. As you probably know, we're under a rain delay at Harbor Town, and we've got golfers on the range. It's still raining, but they're hoping that all these thunderstorms and a little bit of lightning will move out. They've got 18 golfers waiting to finish their rounds, and they think, about an hour and a half to get this thing in. So we'll keep you abreast of what's happening down here. And I guess really, a lot of contenders tried to make their way toward catching Scotty Scheffler, but, eventually they'd run out of gas, and really, we're still looking at a 4-stroke lead between Scheffler and second place Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk, and JT Poston.
Yes, it's it's amazing. We talked about this ad nauseum yesterday, Tom. Scotty Scheffler brings an aura now of dominance with him, and the effect of that on the entire field is obvious, and really in very similar fashion as we witnessed last Sunday at the Masters. It looks like these guys, several players were making a charge and a run at Scheffler, and then Scheffler turns it into another gear. You start hearing those Scheffler roars, which have really become a little more venomous over the last.
Second only to a Daniel Cort roar.
Well, it's not quite a Daniel Cort roar. It sounds a little bit more like a Tiger Woods roar to me. And when that roar permeated through the grounds after the chip-in, which we'll talk about on number 2 for Eagle, it just seemed like those players that were making an early charge, like Wyndham Clark, who had it. I think Wyndham Clark was 8 under par through 11 holes.
He shot 29 on the front 9. That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, no. So he had gotten within 2 of Scheffler, and then, as you said, Patrick Rogers got within 2, and then, or actually 1. Both those guys were within 1 shot of Scheffler, and then they start to make bogeys and double bogeys. And I think the most amazing stat of all that I've seen, other than Scheffler being 19 under and having a 4-shot lead, he has not had a bogey in this tournament. He's had 1 double bogey, and that was on the 3rd hole of the first round.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and I agree with you. We have been talking for the last 4 nights now about being a signature event. What do you think? Was it worth it?
I do. Yeah, I love this. We were blessed with at least 3.5 really good days of weather. Low winds, which means birdies. And for fans, that's what they want to see. In football, you want to see a lot of offense. The purists love defense and low-scoring games. The purists love U.S. Opens where the winning score is even par. But the average golf fan, they like birdies. They like eagles. They like roars. They like to get behind their favorite players. And speaking of their favorite players, what this event format, Tom, does is it puts the best players, current best players in the world on one stage. And in past years when, the only bad thing about following the Masters was we missed a lot of these guys. They took the next week off because they were so worn out from the grind and the pressure of contending and competing in a major. So, I think this tournament, this format really aligns with the best viewing and the most compelling stories for the average golf fan.
Well, you know what? This field, we've got 6 players that are either currently number 1 in the world or have been number 1 in the world. So right there is star power plus. And the majority of those guys are still on the course. So we can't give you a total update, but Justin Rose shot 71 today. He finished at 4 under for the tournament. Jason Day was 5 under today, shot a 66. He is 9 under. And the rest of these guys who were at one time either former number 1 players on the PGA or, of course, Scotty Scheffler is the current number 1. They're still out there playing. But, there's a lot of star power here, and I think the fans love that. The television viewers love that. You and I love that. The only thing I would tell the PGA if I was going to fill out a survey is I'd say, look, find a way to make it 70 golfers instead of 69. It made no sense to me.
So Kevin Kisner doesn't have to play by himself again.
Well, that's I don't want to say it. I had a comeback, but I won't say it.
Well, no, I'm not bashing Kevin Kisner. It's just, he hasn't played a lot of golf this year. He's clearly not on form. He did get in this tournament. He's not played terrible. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think he's 5 over for the 4 days.
Well, he got a sponsor exemption. I just think that, if you're going to have a 69th player, you might as well make it 70.
I agree.
35 groups of 2 makes sense to me. But the other thing is that once you get past the 50 FedEx point getters, you kind of have to figure out that there's next 15, which are Aon Swing 5 and Aon Top 10, whatever they are. I mean, I think there needs to be some transparency and an explanation of what that's all about.
And the local golf fans or the average golf fans aren't. You and I call golf, and we don't even really understand how.
I read it.
All those numbers,
and I didn't understand it. I mean, I looked up strokes gained today. That came out in 2011. It came from Columbia University. A professor there named Mark Brody created it. When it first came out, it had a different name to it, but they've played with it, and now it's a really good indicator of who's really playing great golf and who isn't. And I think everybody knows it and everybody understands it, but Aon needs a little bit more work. We need a better explanation.
I agree with that. Going back to the star power in this field. For local golf fans, I'm sure most are aware that Savannah boy Brian Harmon had the best day so far. It looks like that might hold up here in the final round. The current Open champion, who's number 10 in the world, went out today and shot a scorching 64 and just missed a birdie on 18 for a 63. So it's good to see local guys playing well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wrote down today some names of players we really haven't talked about, and he was one of them.
Yeah,
and he's a great player.
He is.
But Max Homa, we haven't really talked about Max. Max really hadn't made his presence felt here. We'll maybe talk about him later. You mentioned Brian Harmon. Wyndham Clark was a name that didn't really pop up until today when he went lights out on that front 9. Got slowed down in the trees on 12 and 13. That kind of slowed him down, but he was on fire.
Yeah, I turned the telecast on when I got back from church and I knew that he was 9 under through the first 3 rounds, and I looked at it and I had to triple take. He was 13 under only through 3 holes, so I'm like, well, that means he's 4 under through the first 3. Then he goes on to turn at 29, birdies 11 to get to 8 under for the day and 17 under for the tournament, and in that moment he was only 1 back of Scotty Scheffler's lead at 18 under, as was Patrick Rogers. And then, and literally, Tom, within a few minutes, both those guys posted double bogeys. Wyndham double bogeys 12. Patrick Rogers hooks it in the water for a second shot on 8 to make double bogey. And again, I just believe Scotty Scheffler is not only intimidating, but when you have to look at his name on the board, everybody's aware of what he's doing. They heard the roar. But it changes the way guys play. They have to start attacking flags and targets at Harbor Town that you're really not supposed to, and you can pay a heavy penalty for.
We'll come back to that because Sepp Straka ran into that same buzzsaw today. We'll talk about his round. The other name I was going to mention that we really haven't talked about this tournament is Tony Finau. He's a real crowd favorite. But, folks, stay with us. The golfers are on the range getting ready to take the field, as they say, and we will be right here to bring you the action. Don't go away.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. I'm Tom Kinder. Daniel Cort's here with me. Daniel, let's remind the people what the leaderboard looks like before the rain delay started.
Well, Scotty Scheffler is our leader by 4. He's gotten it to 19 under. He has about 7.5 holes left to play. He's in the fairway on 12, getting ready to hit his second shot here as when play restarts. He's only 3 back from Webb Simpson's record of minus 22. I don't know if that's on his mind, but another record he could break today or at least tie. Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk, J.T. Poston, Patrick Rogers, Sahith Theegala, and Colin Morikawa are all 4 back at minus 15. Justin Thomas shoots a great round today. He has had a 65 to get it in at 14 under, along with Patrick Cantlay and a host of others.
Now, before we went to the break, you were talking about what a presence Scheffler is on the golf course, that he isn't just an intimidating golfer, he's an intimidating presence. And you're going up against the number 1 golfer in the world, and he possesses almost every strokes gained category that the PGA, measures. But the guy has no weakness. So, Sepp Straka teed off with him today, and we kind of thought he might have a ball trajectory that could deal with the wind today, although the wind was really never a factor. It's just now kind of picking up with the storm. But talk about Sepp Straka and the impact that playing against the number 1 player in the world must have had on him.
Yeah, great question. Sepp Straka has a ball flight that can deal with wind. He doesn't have a ball flight that can deal with Scotty Scheffler. I was thinking the same thing as I'm watching the early part of their rounds. Sepp Straka has been unflappable this week. To get to 15 under through 3 rounds. And through his first 7 holes, he's 3 over par. Now, anybody can say, these guys are all going to have an off day, but typically when they're on form and have a chance to win, you don't see them repel that much. I just think, and you heard it on the telecast, it looked like he was a deer in headlights. I saw him glance at Dewey Bach, his caddy, several times, and they just looked lost out there. And I just have to believe, very much like I witnessed in the era of Tiger's dominance, players just get caught up in, in tennis they say don't ever get caught watching the other player. You've always got to be ready to play. You've got to stay within your game, within your little sphere, your circle of influence. But when you're watching this golf played at a level we have not seen since arguably the greatest player that's ever played in Tiger Woods, it's difficult not to get distracted by that. And I think that was clearly affecting Sepp Straka.
Well, he was struggling on his own, but, his tee shot, I think, on 4, the par 3, and we'll talk about par number 4 later, but, he was short right, relieved to find out that it stayed up.
Yeah.
And then he muffed that chip. And by that time, you could just see the air was being let out of the tires.
Well, and I think where the air started coming out of the tires was the chip in by Scheffler on number 2. I want to talk about that shot real quick.
Let's talk about that because, you and I have played Harbor Town a number of times. We know how hard it is. You've had that exact shot.
I have, at that exact pin placement. And, we hear at the, when you talk about the Masters, unless you've never been there, the telecast does not show how undulating, how hilly, what elevation, massive elevation change exists on that course. When you look at Harbor Town, by comparison, it looks completely flat. And it is very flat. We are in the low country. Most of the courses here are pretty flat. But there are subtle elevation changes. There are subtle slopes on this golf course.
The genius of Pete Dye, by the way.
Yeah, and 2 is one of those. 2's only defense, really, because it plays the easiest hole every year. 2's only defense is that green. If you hit over that green, and I heard the guys, Trevor Immelman was saying, this is the first tactical error that we've seen Scheffler make by hitting it beyond that pin. When you're coming back down that hill, Tom, at that angle, the bunker to the right creates a large it causes the ball to bank hard to the left. You've got a literally, and I said this to myself, he's got about a foot to maybe 2 feet to land this. And what does he do? He lands it exactly where he's supposed to land, and that thing was center cut. It reminded me of Tiger's chip in on number 16 at the Memorial Tournament in 2012. The announcers were saying the same thing. He hit it in the only spot you can't hit it. He's dead here. It'll be great. This will be a great bogey if he gets this up and down. What does he do? With water behind him, he chips it in, goes on to win the tournament. These guys, there's three things the greatest players in the world do. They're able to assess the shot correctly. Then they have the skill to execute the shot correctly at the perfect time. Now, that is a unique triumvirate of skills that only the best play. Jack Nicklaus had the propensity to do that. So for Scheffler to do that early in the tournament, when guys are making runs at him, Wyndham Clark making runs at him, he's stating to the rest of the field, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not going backwards. So if you're going to catch me, you better keep making birdies.
And you heard it right here. Triumphant is the word of the evening. Last night it was lurking. Daniel, you are amazing.
I'm a wealth of useless knowledge, Tom.
My buddy JT Poston, I worry about him because yesterday he didn't par any of those par fives. I mean, he didn't birdie any of those par fives, and so he knew that. He probably left the money on the table yesterday, and now he had to come back today to play pretty well. He's currently at 2 under. That's through 13, but he's climbed back up the leaderboard. But he keeps, every once in a while he starts doing well, and then he comes back to the group a little bit. He's a very streaky golfer. Reminds me of Sung J M that way. Mm-hmm. Just a streaky guy. So JT had a real chance to put together a streak. I still think that putt bothered him, and then the next day he didn't birdie a single par five.
And you may well be right about that. I mean, he has not been the same player since that putt on 18 at the conclusion of the second round. So, you just never know what's going on inside of a guy's mind. When I think of Scheffler, I think, when you're playing with house money, when you're playing without fear of consequence, it frees you up. Scotty Scheffler looks completely free out there. He's got a Bay Hill, a red cardigan in his closet for the second time now. He's got a second green jacket in his closet now. He just
he won the Players.
He became the first player in history to win the Players back to back. He should have won or could have won easily at Houston against Steven Yeager. He could be going for 5 in a row. He's just a putt short of pulling that off. But he is out there swinging free, swinging loose, no fear of consequence. He's picking his targets, and when he doesn't hit his targets, he's missing them in smart places. And I'm telling you, if anybody says that guy doesn't possess the best short game in the world, I want to sit down and make my case, because Scotty Scheffler has perhaps the best short game I've seen in a long time. And it's his ability to control and manipulate the club face, Tom.
Well, the only person that can slow down Scotty Scheffler right now is Mrs. Scheffler. She still has not had that baby yet, so he's probably got one eye on his phone and the other eye on the ball that he's about to hit.
I think Wyndham Clark was asked about Scheffler yesterday. He goes, "Is Megan going to have that baby before this thing's done?" They're making jokes about it, but tongue in cheek. But that's just how dominant he's got everybody's attention.
Well, you know what? We have a new most difficult hole today, and we also have a new easiest hole. So evidently today was a little bit different. Most difficult hole today was number 4, the 187-yard par 3 rather. Pin was back left up against the water. Tough shot to go after.
Terrifying
shot. And then the easiest hole today was number 5, 560-yard par 5. And that pin was just about middle, just slightly to the right. So nothing daunting about that pin.
We talked about it last night when the committee here at Harbortown bought that extra land to lengthen that tee on number 5. I think they were rubbing their hands and grinning with joy that they had, made this hole too tough for these guys now, or made it a true 3-shotter. These guys are tearing that hole apart. They're as long as they want to be. I think most of these courses have become obsolete. These guys are getting so long off the tee.
I want to come back to that. Right now, I just want to say one more thing about Scotty Scheffler is that he is so calm, so cool, so collected. I was anxious to see how he would play 9 today. If he was just going to put the pedal to the metal, drive the green, and try and get that course record for a 4-round best, score, or if he was going to lay up, and he laid up. And he had a reasonably good birdie putt there.
Beautiful wedge shot in there.
Yeah, and he didn't convert it for a birdie. And I thought to myself, well,
here's why he does that there, though. If for whatever reason you tug that a little bit, you hit the trees left, which runs adjacent to the driving range. If you know Harbortown,
mm-hmm.
I have hit shots slightly left there before and had them ricochet directly left, out of bounds. The driving range is out of bounds. You miss it a little bit to the right, you're into the stands and the concession area. You can make 5, 6, or 7 there easily with one bad tee shot. He didn't need to go for it. Could have, probably had the confidence and the skill to pull it off, but he didn't need to. That's thinking through your bag right there, and that's scary when you put all the other intangibles and superlatives together. When a guy thinks that well, it's just hard to beat him.
Yeah, well, that certainly has been the case the last few weeks. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening at Harbortown, but we also have a surprise for you, something we've never done before. We're going to discuss with you who we selected to put on the Mount Rushmore of golf. We'll be right back.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. We're getting word from the RBC Heritage officials that they're not quite ready to send the players back out onto the courses yet. We know that some of them have been warming up, but evidently there's still some storm cells around. So we'll see. We'll update you what's going to happen as soon as we find out. It might be, one of those situations where, we're going to run out of daylight soon. We've got 18 golfers trying to finish this round. But give us an update on the, really not an update. Just remind us of who's on the leaderboard right now.
Well, with 7.5 holes to play, Scotty Scheffler is our leader by 4 at 19 under. That's just 3 off the pace of the record set by Webb Simpson here in 2020, who was 22 under. So Scheffler still has a shot at taking down or at least tying another record. We've got a number of players 4 back. Wyndham Clark is minus 15, as is Chris Kirk, JT Poston, Patrick Rogers, Sahith Thagala, and Colin Morikawa.
Okay, well, last night, Daniel and I got into a conversation about who we would put on the Mount Rushmore of golf, worldwide golf, I might add. And I said, man, that's a good question. Let me give it some thought. So we both went off and did some homework, and I have come up with 4 names. That might surprise some of you, might not, but here's my 4. Start off with Bobby Jones, American amateur golfer. He was influential in founding and designing Augusta National, and he was also the co-founder of the Masters. But he is really, I think, considered to be the ultimate of all amateur golfers.
That's a great pick.
Bobby Jones was my first pick. Second is a golfer that I've met and I've actually interviewed, and he signed a baseball for me, and that is arguably the people's champion, the ambassador of golf, and that is Arnold Palmer. And if you are ever a member of Arnie's Army, you probably still carry that flag for Arnie. I mean, he is just a wonderful personality, great golfer, but just a terrific ambassador for the sport.
And won our first tournament here in 1969.
Yep, can't forget that. And then, in my opinion, the best golfer ever, Tiger Woods. 683 consecutive weeks, number one.
Yeah.
He was number 2 for 107 weeks. He was number 3 for 27 weeks. Mm-hmm. And he was in the top 10 for 906 weeks.
Yeah.
And thing I like about Tiger is not just his golf game, but we got to watch him since he was like 2 years old.
Right.
You know, if you watch Johnny Carson or whatever it might be, he was just a wonderful example of what can happen if you really work hard and want something.
Right.
And he was my third pick. My fourth pick is a man that I've actually played 9 holes with. I've mentioned him on the air several times, but Pete Dye. He's designed more than 200 golf courses around the world. He learned the trade from what's the Pete? No. I'm trying to think of Donald Ross. Donald Ross. Yeah. Who could easily be on a Mount Rushmore of golf himself. He designed like 400 golf courses, but Pete Dye created some of the world's best golf courses, including the Stadium course down at Sawgrass, Harbor Town. He worked with Jack Nicklaus here, Crooked Stick in Indianapolis, and a golf course that I played years ago in the Dominican Republic, Teeth of the Dog. That was one of the golf courses late in life when he just wanted to torture you.
Best name for a course I've ever heard. Teeth of a Dog.
There it is. Bobby Jones, Arnold Palmer, Tiger Woods, and Pete Dye.
Those are great picks. We concur on 2 of them. And my first 3 are not very much going very far out on a limb here. So we agree on Palmer. We agree on Woods for a lot of the same reasons. I do agree with you that Tiger is the best player that's ever played golf.
I agree.
My third is the greatest champion I think we've ever had, and that's Jack Nicklaus. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of hardcore golf fans out there would argue with us that Jack is better than Tiger because he's won 18 majors. Jack had 2 U.S. amateurs versus Tiger's 3. Most people don't ever bring that up. But Nicklaus had 19 second places in majors. Mm. Really what Jack has done post his golf career impresses me more, though. He's an amazing family man. I don't know how many people are in his family, but it's huge. And he is the consummate husband, seems to, he's never been embroiled in any controversy or in any trouble. He's just a gentleman and a great ambassador. His foundation has raised hundreds of millions of dollars, what he's done. He and Arnie have done for children with illnesses. He's just, when I think of golf, the first guy I usually think of is Jack Nicklaus. My fourth, this is...
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, here we go. And I had to think long and hard about this. Annika Sorenstam. How can you look at what Annika Sorenstam not only has meant to women's golf and the number of women she's inspired to play the game, but what she has done post her golf career? She's extremely philanthropic, but just to remind folks, Annika Sorenstam was a force when she played. 89 worldwide wins, 72 LPGA victories, 10 majors, and the first woman to compete in a PGA Tour event. So hats off, ladies. Annika Sorenstam is the 4th face on my carved stone Mount Rushmore of golf.
That is pretty awesome. All right. Well, you and I were trying to come up with 4 names. We did it, and we'll no doubt have a chance to talk about this again sometime next year.
It's a fun topic.
It is. Next year, if we ever have a guest, that's a question we should ask the guest.
I think it is. Yeah. And
I will say one more thing about Jack Nicklaus. I'm from Ohio, and we love Jack Nicklaus up there.
Sure you do.
But Tom Watson, when he came on the scene and started to compete with Jack.
Yeah.
And would beat Jack.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Ohioans, Buckeyes, we didn't like Tom Watson.
Well, it was kind of like they hated Jack Nicklaus when he started beating Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, well,
Right?
Yeah, probably the same thing.
Yeah. So,
Same thing.
those guys are heroes. And gosh, if Scheffler continues on this course for the next 10 years, Scotty Scheffler will be on a Mount Rushmore of golf. Speaking of Scotty Scheffler, I've been thinking about what would be some cool nicknames for Scheffler. Debbie and I are foodies. we love to watch the Food Network, and one of my favorite shows has always been Iron Chef. So I like Iron Chef, SCHEF Chef. I don't know if our sports fans out there remember Robert Ory, the great shooter, forward guard for the San Antonio Spurs when they were in their heyday winning championships with
Big
Tim.
Bob or Shooting Bob?
They called
like
him
that?
Big Shot Bob.
Big Shot Bob.
I like Big Shot Scott. He just has that ability, that uncanny ability, that Tiger-like, Jack Nicklaus-like ability to make the big shots when he needs them the most. Anybody can make great shots when they're not that important. It's the real champions that make the shots when they count.
Well, if he remains on the number one for 683 weeks, why don't you and I go out and we'll make Scott Shot T-shirts and see if we can make some money. Hey, we mentioned earlier we've got a number of former number one golfers here. Rory McIlroy shot 72 today. He finishes the tournament at 9 under. Jordan Spieth shot 72 today. He finishes the tournament at 6 under. Justin Rose was even, 4 under for the tournament. And Justin Thomas, who hadn't played all that great lately, he was 6 under today, 14 under for the tournament. And Jason Day, one of the most enjoyable interviews I've ever had since I've been here at Harbor Town. Jason Day shot 66 today, 5 under. He was 9 under for the tournament. So
Can we get an update on Jason Day's wardrobe?
Oh, well, I saw that the
There's
Masters
more social media scuttlebutt about his wardrobe than there is his golf game. Since he left Nike, he went with a different troop. And it's interesting. He came out the first round of the Masters in what looked like parachute pants.
Yeah, at the Masters, they made him take off a sweater vest. Did you see that? It had.
Did they make him take it off?
Yeah, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, and he agreed to. He was good about it. But
it's interesting.
Yeah, and those. What was the old rapper long ago? Can't touch us. He had those kind of pants.
MC
on.
Hammer.
MC
baby.
Hammer.
Yeah.
He had MC Hammer pants on. Oh man, I don't know. We've been doing
Well,
this
I don't
too
want to beat
long.
up Jason Day. I'm a huge Jason Day fan.
Oh, me too. Me too. I love him.
And Colin Swatton, who was his caddy and coach for years, is out there as part of the telecast. And Colin lives here in Belfair, so it's great to see those guys, back here on Hilton Head doing well. Some other, Wyndham Clark is our world number 5. He's at minus 15. We've talked a lot about Ludwig Ahlberg. He's world number 7 right now. Max Homa hasn't had a great tournament. I think he's on a Masters hangover, but he is world number 9. World number 8, Patrick Cantlay is playing well. So some of the best players in the world are here. And, Tom, I want to talk a little bit about maybe when we come back. There's 2 guys that I've identified that have the firepower and the mental strength, I think, to give Scotty Scheffler a push. Wyndham Clark is one of them. He's already got a major. He shot 60 in the 3rd round, and which actually won because the final round was canceled at Pebble Beach earlier this year. Oberg shot 61-61 to win the RSM. When you can shoot those kinds of scores, that shows you that's a different level. These guys from tee to green and mentally, I think, have what it takes to push Scheffler, and I don't think they're going to be afraid of him.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to don't go away. We're going to see if we can't get an update on what's happening down there at Harbor Town, and we will be right back. Don't go away.
Coverage of all things RBC Heritage, powered by Hilton Head Exterminators, continues on Rewind 1079. It's the wrap-up show with Daniel Cort and Tom Kinder, live from RBC Heritage.
Welcome back. This is the RBC Heritage wrap-up show. Tom Kinder is my name. Daniel Cort is my How long we been doing this, Daniel? How many years?
Well, I've been doing it 13, but I think I started doing the wrap-up show with you in 2015.
Well, you know what? It's always a lot of fun.
9 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Good run.
Yeah, it's been a great run. We've seen a lot of good champions and a lot of playoffs. But right now, we're being told by the folks at the Heritage that golf is going to resume at 7 o'clock right now. So we're looking at guys going off to the Harbor Town, and I don't know how much they're going to be able to get in, and I'm not sure that it isn't still raining in parts of the island, but we'll know more in a few minutes. But give us an update on where we stand when they go back out onto the course, Daniel.
Scotty Scheffler, world number 1, is our leader at minus 19. He has a 4-shot lead over a number of players. Wyndham Clark, Chris Kirk, JT Poston, Patrick Rogers, Sahith Theegala, and Colin Morikawa. All of those players are minus 15.
Well, when we got here today, we all wanted to see the horse race unfold, which contenders could get out to a fast enough start that they would have a shot at beating the world's number 1 player. Wyndham Clark, the world-ranked number 5 player, he was the first to really get out with that 29 on the front. That was pretty spectacular.
It was.
We don't see many 29s here.
No.
But he slowed down. He, for whatever reason, that number 12, stopped a lot of golfers' momentum today. I mean, there's those trees over there on the right. He ended up knocking out his second shot out of bounds and had to take a drop there, a penalty.
Yeah, it's just jail over there.
No, you can't hit it there. Patrick Rogers, you told us all. He said, look, this guy hasn't won on tour, but he deserves to be here. He is a player, great college player. He's been around for a while, and he made a run. He made birdies on 1, 2, 4, 6, plus he had an eagle on 9. Yeah. Just an outstanding front 9, but a bogey on 7 and then a double on 8. It has seemed to, slow down his ability to catch Scheffler, who by the way was making no mistakes.
Well, I was just going to say that. So what are all these guys that are making these runs doing that Scheffler isn't? They're making bogeys. They're making doubles. Patrick Rogers, we talked about Patrick Rogers. He's got all the ability in the world, but gets within a shot of Scheffler after a birdie at 7, and he hooks it in the water on 8, makes a double bogey. Does come back and chip in for eagle on 9 to get those shots back, but then makes an untimely bogey at number 12. So it's in that, probably more than anything, when you know a player isn't going to come backwards, it changes the way you play. It tightens you up. It makes you less patient. You start attacking targets that you wouldn't normally attack. Talking about Scheffler, and I meant to mention this last night, but winning is an attitude. Scheffler, looks like an aw shucks guy. He doesn't wear very fancy clothes. He doesn't give fancy, gregarious interviews. He's sort of an aw shucks kind of guy. He's got strong faith. Not a lot of glitz and glamour to him, but he is fierce. They say he is one of the most. He hates to lose at darts. He hates to lose at poker, and when you look at what he's done since he's picked up a golf club, going all the way back to 2004, Tom. So from 2004 to 2010, Scotty Scheffler had 74 amateur victories. He won 60% of the tournaments that he teed it up in. He was the 2013 junior amateur champion. So he came onto the tour as a prolific winner. He's a winner. He's a competitor.
So he brought his attitude to the PGA.
It's the attitude. It's that belief that I'm just better than you. You're all playing for second place. Good luck. And it took him a while, like it does. I mean, the tour is a different animal. It takes some of these guys a little bit to learn. But once he figured it out and got that first win at the Phoenix Waste Management, it's been already what looks to be a Hall of Fame career. Two Masters. He's got 9 PGA Tour victories, and if he brings this one home and gets his first tartan jacket, which I think most of us suspect he will do, That's 10 victories in a very early career.
He's
only
27 years old.
27 years old.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time. Now, here's another question. I mean, Live Golf, Koepka, he's a competitor, and I think he's got an ego big enough that he wants to improve his game. John Rahm the same way. I'm hoping that the PGA and Live Golf can come together somehow so that we can once again have the best golfers on one tour. Is there anybody on the PGA roster? The only name I could really kind of come up with was Patrick Cantlay that could really work on his game and maybe challenge Scheffler from time to time. And who's got the game that can knock him off his perch? Or is there anybody?
I don't see anybody.
Yeah.
He's, from all that we can tell, he's healthy. And even he had the neck injury that happened on the 13th hole of the second round of the Players' Championship. I don't know if you recall seeing that, but he had to have his trainer come out there and rub his neck for about 15 minutes. They put tape on his neck, and he really struggled there for about a round and a half, and then shoots the scorching 64 to win his second Players in a row. If Scotty Scheffler is injury-free with the caddy chemistry that he has with Ted Scott, I just think he is a – listen, I mean, it's too early to start making Tiger comparisons, but this is the closest thing that any of us have seen to Tiger-like dominance.
Tiger. Yeah, I
since
agree.
Tiger. In fact, my client, good friend Carmen Elio, who is a PGA scorer, who is down here right now and has been watching some of the tournament, I asked him earlier today, I said, what are your thoughts on Scotty? He said, it's the most similar thing I've seen to Tiger's 2000 dominance in golf, and he goes, I didn't think I'd ever say that. I didn't think I'd ever see that either.
Since you and I have partnered up several times, and I'll remind everybody, and I don't think you've forgotten this, of all the golf that takes place at 107.9 Rewind, you and I are the champions. We took down Hall of Famer Kevin King and Monty Jett, the legendary voice of the Low Country.
We're not going to let him live it down.
No, we're not. You took down Kevin, and I handled Monty and his 36 strokes. But I know you're one of those guys. All the injuries I always have, if I needed somebody to rub my neck, I'd want it to be you, Daniel.
Oh, well, that's
that's
brotherhood right there. Isn't it?
Well, you know what? I just don't know if there's somebody that is going to emerge out of the PGA, but I do think that the PGA, going back to this signature event thing for a second, I think the PGA has to work hard and figure out what they're going to do to really support these young players. And college, they're going to have this nil money, but something has to happen for the PGA. These guys are basically franchises by themselves.
Yeah.
If we bring a player onto the Cincinnati Bengals, we've got a PR staff that will sell that player, to Bengal fans. But the PGA needs to do something for some of their younger players so that they can protect them.
Yeah, and we've talked about greed in golf this week. We've talked a lot about the Live Tour and how that's fragmented the game. Rory even made a comment that the Masters coverage this year was down 20%. The coverage for Bay Hill was down 30%. And Rory said that's a direct result of Live and the impact that Live has had. So these guys have to figure this out. And like you said, the best way for right now, as I see it, for the PGA to harbor and protect these young stars like the Aubergs, the Wyndham Clarks, is they've got to do something. They've got to figure out something with Live and come up with a configuration and an establishment that works for everybody.
No, without question. We don't yet have any information of what's going on at Harbortown, but I do want to take this opportunity to thank the South Carolina Yacht Club for allowing us to be here. I want to thank all of our guests that have participated in the show the last 4 days. I want to also thank our executive engineer producer here, Tim Finley, who Tim, we couldn't do this show without you.
Tim, you're the man.
You are the man. And when we create that multi-million-dollar T-shirt business, we're going to include you in on that. and Daniel, it's I always hate when we're done. We get on a roll and it's so much fun and we enjoy each other's company. Once again, you're just a class act, and man, I learned so much when I'm with you about golf.
Well, it's an honor to sit here with you and do something that we both love. We don't do it for the money; we do it for the passion. You've become a dear friend of mine, and you're a legend in your own right. For folks that don't know, Tom is the legendary voice of the Cincinnati Bengals. His dad was before him. And before we go, I got to hear, and I wanted to ask you this yesterday because it was the third round, but I want to hear it's third down, and you need to start making a tradition on the third round to say it's the third round. Give us one.
Oh man, I could do it, but Tim, I don't want to blow Tim's speakers out. But you know what? I tell you what. Instead of doing it right now, come on up to a ball game.
There
and
you go.
You can hear me do it. In fact, I'll invite all of our listeners. Come to Paycor Stadium. Used to be Paul Brown Stadium.
Joe Burrow's healthy.
Yeah, he's healthy, and we'd love to have you up there. But listen, everybody, thank you so much for listening. We've enjoyed bringing you the RBC Heritage coverage, and right now we're just going to go back and return to our normal programming. Good night.
From the Palmetto State Armory Studios, this is
WRWN,
Port Royal,
Hilton Head,
Savannah,